If you're a founder who wants to build something big, do check out OpenVCR app and get connected to some of the best and most prolific investors in the world. Thank you.
So hey Mac, how are you? Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
Uh, so I guess let's get into it. So who is Mac? Who are you?
Who am I? I am the founder and managing partner of RareBreed Ventures, a pre-seed fund based out of Baltimore, Maryland, investing in exceptional founders. I am a software engineer by trade, a two-time founder with one exit and one failure, and now I'm a VC.
You mentioned the word exceptional there. What does exceptional mean to you?
Exceptional. What does exceptional mean to me? It means somebody who's very customer focused and customer driven, somebody who's very flexible in their thinking, who's willing to pivot and make changes when necessary, and somebody who's like got this unusual magnetism. Like, you ever meet somebody in life where like people just do stuff for them? It's always like why does somebody just give you a car? It's like, I don't know. I went to the grocery store and told somebody I needed to find a better way to get to school, so they gave me a car. It's like, that doesn't happen every day. But there are these people in life where like stuff like that, just like good stuff just happens to them. That's a little exceptional. And then people who like founders who truly care, right? Who do like it's little things, but like who empower their team, empower their co-founders, really try to think about who their customer are and try to do things to speak to those customers, even when they don't have to. That's exceptional.
Yeah, but all these traits, except the magnetism one, aren't they? Don't they already exist in a founder?
No, not every founder. You would think, but not every founder's like that. There are founders who are very arrogant. There are founders who don't care about their customers. There are founders who think they have all the answers and like there is no advice they could get from anybody. There are founders who, as simple as like, would rather be doing work and all the stresses that come with it more than like being with their family. Like, that's unusual. I think most founders probably work so hard they don't get to spend as much time with their family. But I doubt there are many founders who don't wish they were spending more time. There's some people like, yeah, I'd rather be doing this than being home. I don't know if that's the right person for me to work with.
Yeah, for sure. I think all these traits that you mentioned, I like to touch on the magnetism one. That's one thing which is very rare, which I think which is unusual. That rare, which in some cases can be considered unusual. How does a person really develop that?
I don't know if it's something you can cultivate. Like, there are just certain people that just have that. Like, there's like these motivational speakers, right? When you hear them talk, they make you want to do things, right? To see a founder get their team to move in lockstep, all the while telling them, hey, team, I need to tell you this. Our situation is really bad. We're about to run out of money. Everything's horrible. And if we don't get this right, in a few months, we might all be out of a job. So what I'm going to tell you right now is everybody's going to take a pay cut right now, right? We're all going to make less money, but it's going to be so we have more time to figure this out. Who's with me? And to watch a group of people who have families, who have children, who have responsibilities, to all look at this founder and be like, I'm with you. Pay me half of my salary. Doesn't matter. We're going to make this work. Like, there's a lot of people who talk about that kind of stuff. There's very few who can do it and do it well, right? Like, that's magnetism. Or to be like, hey, I need some people to stay with me this weekend and rearrange the warehouse because we can make it more efficient. But we can't afford to pay anybody to do it. So I'm going to stay and do it. And I want all of you to come and do it. And oh, by the way, I'm not paying you. I'm just buying some pizza and some beer. Who's with me? Everybody's like, I'll be here at 8 a.m. to be in this hot, sweaty warehouse and move things around. Just make sure you got that pizza and that beer. Like, it takes a special type of person to rally the troops that way. And that is a skill that can be learned. You know, storytelling's an undervalued skill. And the ability to motivate people's, like being a marketer or sales pitch, right? Like, you can learn those things. But there's some people where it's just natural. And when you meet people where it just comes natural to them, like, you can see it.
But why would someone take half of their salary, for example, for just a person's vision?
They believe in the vision. They believe, to have people believe in what you're building means they believe in the solution, right? Like, every company effectively starts out solving a problem. Yeah. And if you get other people to believe in that problem and believe that you're building the right solution for it, they'll want to work. Or you can sell people in the vision of, this is a rocket ship, and if we do this right, this could change all of our lives. People will do that. Or people just like, I like this person as a leader. They care about me. They empower me. Like, even though I might be making less money, I'm so much happier because I'm in a place where I feel seen. They'll do that, right? So as a leader, to be able to do those things or make people feel that way, that's a unique skill.
Seen by whom?
They feel seen by their company, right? So many people have had jobs where they feel like their boss doesn't listen to them or nobody cares. But to be at a place where you feel like people care and they care about you, that's incredible.
Yeah, for sure. So you talked about people, a lot of people believing in a single person's vision or the company's vision as a whole, is the better way to put it. How does a startup founder identify that in a potential hire? And how does a potential hire identify that in his founder or boss, if you put it?
I think from a potential hire's point, it's tough, right? Because like, if you're a hire, you're just getting a job, right?
Yeah.
But you have to believe in, do you like what this company's doing? Or has somebody else told you that this is an incredible workplace? Or in your initial job interviews, did you ask the questions that made you feel like this is a place for me to be? Or like, did you ask the questions of, how many days do I get off? Like, what happens if my kid gets sick? Like, how many mental health days can I take? I really care about these nonprofits. Is there any way to get the company to put money towards the organizations I care about? Or, I do this marathon every year. Can I post about it at work? Right? The things that aren't the like cookie cutter, like, what's my salary going to be, right? But it's the other things that I think those employees will ask questions about to kind of get that feel of like, is this where I belong?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think related to this, one thing which a lot of founders wonder is, are employee stock options really worth, or do they really motivate a person to work at the start?
I think for some people, for sure, because like, so here's the thing. I think they motivate people because if you find the right company, those stock options will change your life, right?
Yeah.
I think the bigger thing is, and this is from an employee standpoint, once you get a job at one of these fast, high growth startups, you now get put into the recruitment circles for all the other fast growing startups, right? Because where do you get the best talent? Well, you just poach them from somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So like once you get into that talent pool, you got recruiters calling you up. Now every company you talk to is going to give you stock options and stuff, right? So when you first get in, it makes a big difference. Then once you get in, it kind of is par for the course. So now it's just about, do I believe this is the right company that these stock options will ever become a thing, right? Because if you end up at a company that doesn't get that big and doesn't become a unicorn, then who cares about the stock options? But if you get into the company that turns into be Uber, those stock options mean a lot, right? So then you just gotta believe, like, am I on the, once you get on a rocket ship, there's gonna be a bunch of other rocket ships that want you, but you just gotta decide, am I on the right one? And if you find the right one, those stock options will make a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. Money is a lot of people do say that money is not that big of a motivation if a person joins the startup. I think that's correct for all the points that you mentioned. So how does a founder really motivate the person on a day-to-day basis? Vision can help them in the long term, but on a day-to-day basis, no one really thinks a lot about the vision, in my opinion, that much.
I think the day-to-day, it's the fun of building something, right? Because like when you're in a startup, especially early on, it's this high pace, working environment. Every day's new. You're creating, like, it's not like you work at Walmart and you're adding a new widget to the website, right? It's like you're building everything from scratch. And so there's always something new. There's always something exciting. And you get motivated by, in those moments where it gets tough, it's the vision that pushes you forward, right? It's not necessarily that you need motivation day to day. It's like what keeps you motivated when it gets hard. And the things that keep you motivated when it gets hard is the stock options, is the vision, is I believe that this founder is going to change the world. It's the same thing as like people who work on political campaigns, right? If you're, supporting a political candidate and you're working on as part of the campaign, you're one of hundreds of people in this machine, right? But what motivates you to keep going every day where you're like probably not getting paid as a volunteer, going door to door, doing things that most people don't want to do is because you believe in that politician, you believe in that person. Then a startup founder is very similar. Like, did they give you something to believe in? Did they give you like, it's like, yeah, this is hard, but I think Mac's going to change the world. And so like, because he's changing the world, I want to be there when it happens. So yes, I know this is hard and I know I've been putting in 60-hour work weeks, but we're going to do a 70-hour work week this week because we got to get this done because that vision's got to happen. Right? Like, those are the things.
Yeah, that's an incredible point. I mean, the more you think about it, the more you realize how important that is. But if we are relating to this, but take an example of Steve Jobs. A lot of people look up to him when building anything. He was considered to be relatively a tough boss in one way or the other. Why do you think did people still believe in the guy when he was such a tough person to work with?
It's like the tough people to work with, what they do is they create this sense of urgency of like, how do I make this person happy? How do I make this person proud? Right? It's like, people with parents that are hard to like ever please and never tell you they love you. So they spend all their time trying to figure out how do I make you proud. It's kind of the same thing for Steve Jobs. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to do a presentation to Steve and I know he needs the deck looking like this. Words need to be looking like this. Everything's got to be beautiful. I'm going to do everything I can to make this happen. And then it does it. And it's like, oh, he's so terrible. I hate this. But it's okay. Because like, if I do it better next time, he'll tell me he like, right? And so you find yourself in this loop of trying to prove yourself. Well, that can be a real driver for wanting to push the envelope because like, you're always going to try your best to go above and beyond because you're always looking for approval. So like, it's never okay to be mediocre because you have such a tough boss. So the tough boss now forces you to either to step your game up or to be like, I can't stand this person. I need to go somewhere else. Right. But, and also, Steve Jobs has like, he he gets known as that, but like Apple becomes a brand. So like you're now attached to the brand. And so you believe that this person who could build this, there must be something good about them. They figured something out. There's something for me to learn. So like I gotta get that. Right. And it sounds weird, but when you think about it, like that's what it is.
Yeah. Is it tougher to create the same type of environment now? Apple was started out back in like, a few years ago, and then not a lot of options for the employees, and they are not seen a lot of cases of founders like that. So has it become tougher to be a person like Steve Jobs these days and work like?
I don't know if it's become tougher because there are plenty of people who are like that. I think it's more, there's a lot more people who are trying to emulate that, but that's not who they are. Right. I think it's harder. I think there are people who are trying to emulate and be Steve Jobs, and that's not who they are authentically. I think it's also important to be like authentic as a leader, like who you are as a leader. Don't try to take on other people's traits, like figure out what makes you a good leader. But I don't think it's impossible or hard to be that today. I think the hardest part is growing a successful company, right? The most likely outcome of any company is that it's going to fail. Full stop. Most companies fail. Full stop. So is it harder to be a leader like Steve Jobs? No, it's harder. It's just hard to build a company, right? Apple's worth $1 trillion, right? It's hard to build a $1 trillion company. But can you be a leader like Steve Jobs? Sure, right? Are there people like that out there? Yes. But you got to find the right employee base and the right group of people who are going to follow you, who are going to believe in who you are and that style of leadership. And then that permeates throughout the company because that becomes part of the culture of the company as well.
Why do most companies fail actually?
Because building a company is hard. Like building a company is one of the hardest things. I mean, building something and getting somebody to pay you for it is tough. Like anything. Like even if you make chocolate, if you're like, I got a new type of chocolate, I'm going to make it. I'm going to go to this farmer's market and I'm going to get people to buy it. And then you sit there at this booth and you just wait until anybody will come and try your chocolate. And then you realize, okay, nobody's trying this. So now I'm going to take this chocolate and I'm going to cut it up into small pieces and I'm going to walk around and I'm going to give it out for free. And maybe somebody's going to like it and then they're going to come buy it. And then you start giving out your chocolate and everybody tells you they hate it because you have this chocolate infused with some other weird seasonings that nobody likes. And so then it's like, okay, everybody hates my chocolate. I thought everybody loves chocolate. Fine. I need to figure out how to get chocolate that people like. Well, you've already wasted a bunch of money building, creating the chocolate you started off with that nobody likes. Now you got to throw all this stuff away and try again, right? Oh, and then while you're doing it, your co-founder or your friend who helped you start this tells you that we shouldn't be doing chocolate, we should be doing cupcakes. And you're like, well, I want to do chocolate. They're like, well, I think we should be doing cupcakes. Well, I don't. Well, they're like, well, I'm going to leave. I'm going to start doing cupcakes on my own. Well, the co-founder who left was also the chef. So now you don't have anybody to cook it. And now you have to decide that I'm going to keep trying this. Right? Like this happens when co-founders split. Your CEO wants to do something different. Right? Or you build something that you know is going to be great and you spent all your money, but nobody actually cares. Right? Like these things happen. Or you start building it, you get some early success, but you realize the early success wasn't actually an indication that enough people wanted this for this to be a big enough business. Right? Like there's 1,000,001 reasons for companies to fail all the time.
Yeah. I think I'll pick you on the last part a little bit with the co-founder one. I recently had Jeff Seibert on the podcast. I don't know if you know him. He built Crashlytics, sold it to Twitter for 100 million, and then started Digits. So what I asked him, what should the co-founder split trail look like? And he told me something which normally most people don't follow, is that if you have two co-founders, then a 50-50 split. That's what he did in all his companies. Do you think that's a good way to resolve these co-founder issues?
So I will I subscribe to equal equity splits for companies, for founders, right? For many reasons. That's what I did in my startups. And I will tell you, one, the person who comes up with the idea wanting more equity, that's meaningless, because even though you came up with the idea, you got 12 years of execution ahead of you before you get to an exit. So like a lot happens. And as you're building a company, the person who's the most important in the company fluctuates over time, right? So like when you're just getting started, let's say you're building a B2B SaaS company, when you first start the company, the person who's the most important in the business is the CTO, because they're probably going to be the one building it. And so until it's built, nothing else matters. But once it gets built, okay, yeah, the CTO and the team is going to be making tweaks, but now the most important person in the company is probably the CEO. They got to go sell it, right? And so as they're selling it, the CTO and the crew were like making changes and helping, but like they're not doing the stuff that's material anymore. And so the CEO finally gets it sold and things are happening, but now we got to get up for a new release so that we can go after a new customer base. Okay, now the CTO, the technical team becomes the most important again, right? And so like doing it based on importance, that fluctuates. So that makes it difficult. But Michael Seibel from YC, former CEO of YC, told me something once, and this is years ago, back when I was still a founder, probably in 2011. And he said, equity was a proxy, your equity ownership was a proxy for your responsibilities. So when you don't have equal equity splits, and I'm the CEO and I got 80% equity, and you're my CTO and I only gave you 10, because our head of design, I gave them 10 as well. And I come to you and I'm like, look, we got to hit these deadlines. All this stuff is happening. I need you to work harder. And I can look at you and be like, well, you with your 80% equity, I ain't seen you bringing that near VC dollar of investment like you said you were going to do. Our wait list of customers hasn't grown and our pipeline isn't getting any better. So what are you doing, Mr. 80%? I'm going to keep working as hard as I can already, as I'm already putting in crazy amount of hours, right? Like it allows for this friction, right? Of like, I don't feel as like, it's almost like a level of importance based on equity. But if we're all equal and I'm like, yo, I need you to work harder because we need to hit these deadlines. And you're like, well, you haven't done this other stuff. I'm like, well, I'm working on it, but I can't get this stuff done until you're done. Let's go. It's like, all right, I got to get it done, right? It just takes it takes away from those arguments, right? And then also like I tell you, my first company, we didn't start off with equal splits. Our CTO who came up with the idea, he started off having more equity. After 3 years of being in the business and all of us putting in the same amount of effort and working hard and doing everything to make the company grow, he came back around and was like, yeah, we should all be. And that was important because like some of us were starting to feel uncomfortable, like, yo, yeah, you're the CTO, but like the last, like all the stuff that's happened in the last year that's propelled our company forward hasn't been you. The people who put in like the stuff to make this a company, like we're getting less and it doesn't feel good, right? And so I am a fan of equal ownership, but I get the arguments for why not. Because at the end of the day, the reason most people are doing this is that they're looking for that big payout one day. And that big payout is dictated by however much equity you have.
You at one of your startups, I think in addition to this, I think this would be a good point that I think we can ponder upon. At one of your startups, your CTO vanished. Why was that?
A CTO vanished because his life partner wasn't excited about the idea of him being at a startup. He came from a stable job and we were in a very high-paced environment without getting paid. And I think that, this period of time and working really hard, being stressed, getting pushed to go harder when you're not getting paid and you have a life partner who's like not being all that supportive. That's a recipe for like things not working out. Unfortunately, he disappeared and like didn't say anything for 2 years. That was tough. It was very tough. It essentially is what ended up killing that company. But,
Yeah.
companies failing because of co-founder issues is one of the most common things out
Yeah, for sure. I think it's second or third most biggest reason why companies fail. Yeah, something that needs to be worked out on. But I think I'll pivot here a little bit. We talked about a lot of things, but to bring back to the schedule, I'll ask you, what really, uh, how do two rare people really meet?
How do two rare people really meet? Like you mean co-founders?
Yeah.
Who knows? It could have been they met working, they used to work together. It could be that they met at a hackathon, or they met on some online platform. Or I got one company where the co-founders met because the one co-founder called up the company to give a survey report thanking for such good service, and then realized he was on the phone with the owner and asked the owner, "Hey, can I join your company because I love what you're doing?" Right? Like, it happens in so many different ways. So yeah, there's tons of ways for two amazing people to meet. It's harder to have two amazing people work together. The meeting happens all kinds of ways. Working well together, that's a little harder.
Yeah, for sure. So let's say two incredible people meet. What is the difference between how these rare breed founders create products versus what you have seen that normal founders really don't?
I tell founders all the time, as unique and creative as you are in building your product, you need to be equally as unique and creative in the way you go about getting customers and in your customer acquisition. I think too often, especially first-time founders, this is a super common thing. You don't think about your customer acquisition as much as like you just want to build the world's greatest product. And what I know is you can have a product that's 100 times better than anything else on the market. It does not matter if nobody's willing to pay for it. So very often founders think like, I need to have the world's greatest product. Sure. But really you need to have a company you need to build something that people are going to pay for, or you need to figure out how to get people to pay for your product. So if you spend years building the world's greatest product, it doesn't matter if you don't know how to get customers.
Yeah. I think I'll ask two questions based on this. What is a great product?
All right, I'll give you an example, right? So the iPod saved Apple as a company, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about the original iPod, what was it? It was a crappy MP3 player that broke all the time. If anybody ever had an original iPod, you know the little sad face that would pop up on it. And you'd have to take it back and have to ship it out and all this, right? Well, at the time when the iPod came out, you could go to stores like Circuit City or Best Buy or stores nobody ever goes to anymore. And there would be a literal wall of MP3 players. A wall of MP3 players that were cheaper, could hold more space, better quality sound, more bells and whistles, more reliable. And people would literally walk past this wall of cheaper, better options to go get the crappy iPod because Apple figured out the marketing. They figured out the marketing and the branding, and the marketing and the branding got them enough units sold that it then gave them enough runway to build a superior product. Because the iPod got better and better, and then you get the iPhone. But they had enough runway because they had such good marketing early on to get them the money to then build a superior product. But originally, it was nothing but a crappy MP3 player. And there were plenty of companies out there like, our product is so much, everybody jokes about it, but the Microsoft Zoom was such a better product. It was uglier, it was bulkier, but it held way more space, had better sound quality, had better digital tool options, because like everything had to be from your desktop, but their software was way better than iTunes back then. And all people did was clone it because it didn't look as good as the iPod, even though knowing it was a better product.
So is the lesson here that create a crappy product but be good at marketing?
Great marketing will outperform your product every time. Now, you don't want to have a crappy product. You want to have a product that people want to use. Right? But if you figure out the marketing, it'll get you to a place to figure out the product. But if you have a good product with good marketing, that's the best place to be. If you have a bad product with good marketing, you can probably make that work. If you have a great product with bad marketing, you probably don't have a company.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Actually, a lot of people, I don't know, but why not create a great product and have great marketing?
I mean, I think that's where every company should aspire to be. I just think too many founders get so caught up in the product that they don't think about, and they don't spend enough time thinking about distribution and getting customers or how customers think.
But as a VC, you guys, your job is to give money to people to build something which changes the world, which is wild to think about. So,
Yeah.
how do you identify a great product at a pre-seed stage made by people who are not really recognized by anyone?
I mean, it's having conviction in the founder, really having conviction in the founder and the team, right? Like when you invest really early, or you're investing where other people aren't looking, or if you're investing in places most people don't invest, you have to have real conviction in a team's ability to build and sell a product that can one day be worth $1 billion. And that's a lot of projecting into the future. And for me, I'm not really projecting to the $1 billion part. I'm projecting of, do I believe you're smart enough, flexible enough in your thinking, working hard enough with a good enough product to navigate everything from when I give you this check to the next 3 years for you to get from pre-seed to Series A, right? Over these 3 years, do I believe you have the skills and the fortitude and the grit and everything to get through all the BS you got to get to go from where you are today to a Series A, right? And if you can, and if I have conviction in that, well, then you probably have a chance to do something big.
You talked about founder being smart there. I think how much of smartness is really required to build a company? I'm not talking about the IQ of the person, but smartness in general.
I would say, I think being smart as a founder is kind of table stakes. Like all founders are smart. They figure something out. I think more than just being smart, a lot of VCs say coachable, but I should say flexible. Somebody who's willing to hear out, think through, and try out creative solutions to get ahead, because everybody's smart. So then how do you get an edge? And a lot of times it's around creativity and unique ways of going about things.
How does a founder really be creative?
So I'll give you an example, right? So I have one founder who's got a product in the beauty space, in the nail space. And so what this founder recognized was that most nail polish companies didn't have a Vietnamese version of their website. But in the US, most nail salons are owned by Vietnamese individuals. So he was like, well, I just made a version of my website in Vietnamese because like that's the community I'm going after. But all these other major brands don't. that's a small, simple thing, but that's really impactful. And that's creative. That's creative, and it's also a founder who's paying attention to his customers, right?
Yeah, I think I'll pick you on this one, but we'll not talk about the company. I'm not not here to bash anyone or something, but it's companies like these which solve a really minute problem. Are they really scalable from a venture perspective?
Well, the company I was just mentioning is technically a hardware company, who have developed the device that can make custom nail polish in any color. And now have a vending machine that can make nail polish in any color. So they're currently in a Walmart in Tennessee, where you can go and pick a color and watch this machine dance around and give you a bottle of your custom nail polish, right? That company has decacorn potential where they could be worth over $10 billion just because of all the other unique offerings they have. But granted, I started off saying they were a beauty product, right?
Yeah.
I have another company that's similar, where if you look at them today, all they do is they sell custom jeans, really expensive custom jeans. But in actuality, they created a device that after you scan your body will take your measurements and basically 3D print these jeans with one piece. So there's zero waste in the process, where you get a perfect size custom jeans every time. But it's because this machine basically 3D prints clothes and make them perfect to your size every time. And so like they have the chance to be a $10 billion company because I'm investing in from these cases, and really what I'm banking on is the hardware behind the actual product, right? So again, like yes, companies like that are hard to scale. What I would say though is companies where you're like beauty products, skincare products, even like travel apps or dating apps. These are companies in very saturated markets. And very often what sets these companies apart is their brand. Like Fenty is worth $1 billion because Rihanna is the face, right? And they built a brand around inclusive makeup and inclusive body types for more intimate clothing. That company is successful because of the brand. Like there's no real moat in the makeup or even in the clothing because anybody else can do that. But if you can have a strong brand around it, that's really what sets you apart. And so when I'm looking at companies that are in spaces like that, I'm looking for how strong of a brand have you built to be able to raise above the noise in conjunction with how fast you're growing. Because your speed and growth is a proxy for your ability to execute.
For sure. Yeah, I love the part about the makeup brand there. That's interesting. It's an interesting industry because no one really has any visible mode there. Anyone can make makeup, but there are still differences between successful and unsuccessful companies. But I'll pick you more on the first half that you mentioned there. A lot of companies where they start out with they have a bigger goal, but they start out as a smaller chunk of that goal. How do you find that perfect? How does the founder really find that perfect chunk to start with in order to build the main vision that they might have?
I think you always start off with what's the smallest, easiest, quickest thing I can test out, knowing what the bigger vision is going to be, right? And so it's usually you start off, and it's not usually the quickest or easiest, it's usually the thing that you care the most about. So you start there. Whereas like we build a platform. So there's a platform that helps with young people building self-esteem. Well, the founder's overall vision is to be to self-esteem what it better help is to mental health, right? Everybody's heard the better health commercials, and you go on the app and right. they eventually want to be that for self-esteem, but they're starting with young people, one, because that's what they were most passionate about. And that's what they were able to get their initial customer base in, going to schools. And so when you see something working, you kind of double down and focus on that. And then as it grows, you get to the bigger vision. But within the bigger vision, there's always steps, right? And it's just figuring out which step is the easiest or the quickest one for you to work in. And it's usually the one that you're either most passionate in or have the ability to break into first, right? Like, again, I'll go back to the nail polish companies like this device. Well, they started with nail polish because that's what the founders cared about. They like nail polish. Their device could actually work for a lot of other things in liquid form. And so they'll get there. But they started with what they liked and were passionate about, and they can grow from there.
Yeah. And does it have to be within the same industry or different industries as a whole?
It could be in different industries as a whole, right? It doesn't, like, your big vision may be something very, very grand, right? So, like, I'll go back to this makeup. So right now they're doing custom beauty products, right? They're basically a vending machine for custom beauty products. That's what they're doing. Their bigger vision is to have the machine that can do manufacturing and customization of anything in liquid form.
Yeah.
They're eventually going to go into many, many, many other industries. But today, they're just in beauty, and they're just with nail polish, right? A few months from now, they'll be doing multiple makeup products. A few years from now, they'll be doing things that have nothing to do with beauty, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering when this company pitched you, the nail polish company or any of these companies that have a much bigger vision, do they actually tell the investors this vision that they're working on right now, or the one that they are targeting a decade or?
So I always felt different VCs feel differently about this, right?
Yeah.
Every VC is going to give you a different answer. What I tell founders is start off telling the story of what you're building and what you're solving for today. Focus your pitch on that. And then towards the end of your pitch, you can put in, this is where we're starting, but this is the goal. Where we ultimately want to be is this bigger vision. We're very laser focused on what we're doing today. But what we know what we're doing today is really massive and can do really well. But the way we become a multi-billion-dollar company is that we get to this point. And so it allows the investor to see that you're thinking bigger and where you're trying to go, but understanding that that's over in the background. We'll get there one day. And right now, today, this is what we're focused on. This is what
And in this stage, when a person is giving you all the vision, pitching you the company, how much of actually deciding to give the money is based upon the founder himself or herself versus the company that they build?
very early on is a lot about the founder and a bit about the company. Because, like, it's also weird because, like, as a pre-seed investor, I know that within 3 years of my investment, your company's probably going to be something different. Right? Because you're going to pivot, you're going to make some changes, they're going to be doing different things, you're going to figure things out. And so I'm making a big, big bet on the founder to be smart enough and flexible enough to make the changes to get to what the company needs to be in 3 years. But I'm still also fundamentally believing in the starting point of the company they're building of, like, okay, this makes sense, this is smart. I don't know this is where they're ultimately going to end up at, but I do see where they're going.
And during that period, how much of the control over where the company is heading to, how much of it is in the investor's hand? Personally?
Generally speaking, it should mostly be in the founders and the executive team's hands. It becomes in the investors' hands when the bottleneck that is holding the company up from growing is the founder or executive team, right? Like, as an investor, my job is to do what's best for the company, not necessarily what's best for the founder. And if the founder is inhibiting the growth of the company, well, then that's when the investors may get involved. But even when the investors get involved, unless they step in to like run the company for a period of time or such, the course of the company should still come from whoever the next set of executives are, right? The investors themselves shouldn't be charting the course. Now, we can give you feedback, we can give you opinions, we can tell you what we think we can help you achieve. But at the end of the day, like the founding team, the executive team needs to run the business. Like unless the investor is willing to leave their perch to come run the business day to day with you, there's only so much we can do. There's only so much we should be doing. That's not to say some investors don't come in and try to tell entrepreneurs what they should do, what they shouldn't do. Like that's not where investors should be. Like we're there to support and help. We're not there to run. Like we invested in the vision that you laid out, not because of the vision we had. I mean, some investors do that, but generally speaking, like in generality, that should be the executive team's job.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think in relation to this, at an early stage, how should founders really construct their board in general?
So generally speaking, when you first start your board, it's not so much that it's a whole construction, because like generally speaking, your first board should be a 3 to 5 person board. One person representing the company, CEO, one person representing your investors, typically the lead investor, and then a third party independent that's mutually agreed upon. If it's a 5 person board, then 2 investors, 2 people in the company, and 1 third party. That's the way you should want to, construct the board. You want to have odd numbers, right? But then again, none of these things are set in stone. So like I happen to be on a board that's 4 people, right? It's not even an odd number. And 3 of us on the board are investors, 1 entrepreneur, right? Like that's just the way the entrepreneur was okay constructing their board, right? That's not normal or standard, but again, through all these playbooks that you may read about venture capital or about entrepreneurship, none of this stuff is set in stone. So there's always room to do it the way you want to do. Now, you get away without having a board. Once you have a price round, you get a price valuation, you're most likely going to get a board. If you're on a safe note, you might be able to, you could probably get away without having a board. But does there exist a world where you could raise money on a safe note and still have a board? Absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
So it just all depends.
What does the board really do?
The board's job is oversight, right? Their job is to make sure the company is moving in the right direction that is in the best benefits of the shareholders in the company, right? So that means they set compensation for executives, they hire and fire CEOs, they are oversight for financials, right? And they are supposed to be there to help for strategic movements and planning. But really, what a good board does for a founder is they are able to help them through an inflection point, either positive or negative. If you're going through an inflection point of fast growth and you need additional resources, your board should be able to pick up the phone and help you get the resources. If you're going through a down period where you're struggling, your board should be able to pick up the phone to help you get resources or step in to be resources for you, right? That's what a good board does. But generally speaking, the board's job is oversight to make sure the company's being ran in the best interest of the shareholders.
Yeah. And who is on the board? Does the founder decide it, or do the board members decide?
So typically it's negotiated during the time of a fundraise, generally speaking, right? You said, okay, we're going to have a board. This many seats go to investors, this many seats for the founders, and this many third parties. So that's usually negotiated between the investor and the founders.
Yeah, that's an incredible point. I think, yeah, this is incredible. I think we'll take a hard stop there. I just have the last question. what advice do you have for all the young builders and founders?
What I would say for all the young builders out there is read as many nonfiction books as you can. It's a great cheat code of learning from other people's mistakes and successes, right? Listen to the podcast, read the books, but also remember that don't get caught up in anybody else's playbook. It's okay to make your own. Make your own way, find the way. And at the end of the day, you did not start your business to raise venture capital. You started your business to solve a problem. You focus on that, everything else will work itself out.
Yeah, that's one of the best advice anyone has ever given on the show. I'll just end with one question, which I usually like to end with. So fun one. I've been into VC and startups since I was 11. What do you think is one fact that will blow 11-year-old mind?
One fact that would blow 11-year-old you's mind. That is a great question. Did you know pumpkins and bananas are technically berries?
Oh, really?
Yes.
See,
no idea.
It blew 15-year-old mind.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, all right. That was out of all the things we talked about, that's the best part of the show.
There you go.
This is incredible. Thank you so much for doing this. I know it was hectic and I was a bit too pestering, but that's it from my side. Anything you'd like to say?
Thank you for having me. I've appreciated my time, and who knows, in like a year or two, maybe we do a follow-up.
Who knows? We might do it in person.
I'd love that.